My son humiliated me in front of 200 people by saying I had not even paid for his cake. I just smiled, stood up, and walked out. By sunrise, his entire future was gone. I should have known the moment I stepped into that ballroom that I did not belong there anymore. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks earlier, heavy cardstock with gold-embossed lettering that felt expensive just to hold. Ryan Carter's 35th birthday celebration, black tie, the Riverside Grand Hotel. My son was turning 35, and apparently, this required the kind of party I could only dream of hosting back when he was a boy eating birthday cake at our kitchen table. I wore the navy dress I kept for special occasions. It was simple, elegant, appropriate, but the second I walked through those tall double doors, I felt every stitch of it marking me as different. Around me swirled gowns that cost more than my monthly mortgage, suits tailored to perfection, jewelry that caught the light from the crystal fixtures overhead. Laughter floated through the air, champagne glasses clinked, and a live quartet played something sophisticated I could not name. I searched the crowd for my son's face. When I finally spotted Ryan near the bar, my heart lifted for just a moment. He looked so handsome in his tuxedo, his dark hair swept back the way his father used to wear his. But when our eyes met, something shifted in his expression. Not quite recognition, not quite warmth, just a flicker of acknowledgement before he turned back to the circle of people surrounding him. I made my way through the room slowly, trying not to feel invisible. A server offered me champagne. I took it, grateful to have something to do with my hands. People brushed past me in conversation, their perfume expensive, their voices bright with the kind of confidence that comes from never having worried about rent. Where are you watching this from right now? What time is it where you are? If this story is hitting home, please hit that like button and subscribe. I promise you, what happened next changed everything. Now, let me continue. I found a seat at one of the round tables near the back. Not assigned seating, just somewhere I could observe without being in the way. Ryan still had not come over to greet me. I told myself he was busy, that this was his night, that of course he had to attend to his guests. But deep down, in that place where a mother knows things she does not want to admit, I understood the truth. My son was avoiding me. Tessa appeared at his side, her hand sliding possessively around his arm. She wore emerald green, her blonde hair styled in waves that probably required 2 hours and a professional. She whispered something in Ryan's ear, and he laughed, pulling her closer. They looked like they belonged in a magazine. Perfect, polished. A world away from the woman sitting alone at table 17. Dinner was served. I barely tasted it. Courses came and went, each more elaborate than the last. Around me, conversation flowed about vacation homes and stock portfolios and people I had never heard of. I smiled politely when anyone made eye contact, but mostly, I was ignored. Then came the cake. It was massive, 4 tiers of dark chocolate and gold leaf, topped with sparklers that crackled and spit light. Everyone applauded as it was wheeled out. The room dimmed. Phones came up to capture the moment. And Ryan, my beautiful boy who I had raised alone after his father died, walked to the microphone. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice smooth and practiced. The crowd quieted. "This has been an incredible year, and I could not have done it without the support of some very important people." He gestured toward Tessa, who beamed. "My amazing fiancé, who makes every day better." Applause. Whistles. And of course Victor and Patricia Monroe, who have welcomed me into their family and shown me what true success looks like. More applause. Victor raised his glass from his table near the front, looking every bit the patriarch who had built an empire. I waited. Surely Ryan would mention me. Surely, after everything, he would acknowledge the woman who had sacrificed everything so he could stand in that room. "You know," Ryan continued, his tone shifting to something almost playful, "a lot of people have asked me about this party, how we pulled it off, where the funding came from." He paused, and I swear I felt the air change. "I just want to be clear about something." My hands gripped the edge of the table. "Victor covered everything tonight. The venue, the dinner, the band, everything. My mom did not pay for any of it." He laughed, light and careless. "She did not even pay for the cake." The room erupted in laughter, good-natured, casual, like he had made a joke. But it was not a joke. I felt 200 pairs of eyes slide toward me for just a second before moving away. Embarrassed for me or amused, I could not tell which. My face burned, my throat closed, but I did not cry. I did not shout. I did not make a scene. I just smiled. I set down my napkin, picked up my small purse, and stood. My chair scraped slightly against the floor, but no one noticed. Ryan had already moved on, raising his glass in another toast. Tessa was laughing beside him, her hand on his chest. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high and my heart shattered. The cool night air hit me the second I stepped outside. I made it to my car before the tears came. I sat in the driver's seat, hands shaking, staring at the steering wheel as everything I had been holding back for months finally broke free. He had humiliated me, in front of everyone, and he had not even noticed. But somewhere between the tears and the silence of that parking lot, something shifted inside me. A clarity I had not felt in years settled over my chest like armor. I did not lose my son that night. I had already lost him long before, and that meant I was finally free to stop pretending otherwise. I did not always have money. There was a time when I counted pennies to buy milk. 27 years ago, I became a widow at 30 years old with a 3-year-old son and $17 in my checking account. Robert, my husband, died in a car accident on a Tuesday morning. One moment he was kissing me goodbye at the door, the next I was identifying his body at the county morgue. The life insurance policy we thought we had turned out to be expired. He had missed the payment during a rough month, planning to catch up later. Later never came. I remember standing in our tiny apartment in East Dallas, looking at Ryan asleep in his crib, and realizing with absolute terror that everything now rested on my shoulders. The rent was due in 8 days. The electricity bill was overdue. I had a toddler who needed food, diapers, and a future I had no idea how to provide. So I did what you do when you have no other choice. I worked. I found a job cleaning houses through a service that paid cash at the end of each day. 5 houses on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 on Saturdays. I scrubbed toilets, mopped floors, and polished furniture in homes that belonged to people who would never remember my name. My knees ached, my hands cracked from chemicals, but I came home with enough money to keep us fed. Ryan stayed with Mrs. Connor next door, a grandmother who watched him for $20 a day. It was not ideal, but it was safe, and she was kind. Sometimes I would pick him up and he would smell like her lavender hand cream, and I would feel both grateful and heartbroken that someone else was there for the moments I could not be. At night, after Ryan went to sleep, I taught myself to cook, not just basic meals. Real cooking, the kind that makes people close their eyes when they taste it. I checked out library books on French technique, Italian pasta, Southern comfort food. I watched cooking shows on our old television and took notes. I experimented with whatever ingredients I could afford, turning cheap cuts of meat into something tender, making vegetables sing with the right seasonings. It started as survival. If I could cook well, I could feed us for less money. But then Mrs. Connor asked if I could make food for her church potluck. Then a neighbor asked me to cater her daughter's baby shower. Then someone from that shower asked about their anniversary party. Word spread slowly, the way good things do in working-class neighborhoods. Valerie Carter makes food that tastes like love. Valerie Carter will work within your budget. Valerie Carter shows up on time and leaves your kitchen cleaner than she found it. I was 33 when I registered Carter Events as an actual business. It was just me, working out of my apartment kitchen, but it had a name. It had business cards I printed at the library. It had a future. Ryan was 6 then, old enough to sit at the kitchen counter doing homework while I prepped food for weekend events. He learned to measure ingredients before he learned long division. He knew the difference between a whisk and a spatula before he could ride a bike without training wheels. Some of my earliest memories of us together are not at parks or playgrounds, but in that cramped kitchen, him asking questions while I rolled dough or trimmed vegetables. "Why do you work so much, Mama?" "Because I am building something for us, baby. Something that will make sure you never have to worry the way I do." He accepted that answer the way children do, with trust that felt both beautiful and terrifying. By the time Ryan was 10, Carter Events had grown beyond what I could handle alone. I hired 2 part-time helpers, women like me who needed flexible hours and decent pay. We moved to a small commercial kitchen space I rented by the month. I bought a used catering van that broke down twice in the first year, but got us where we needed to go. The jobs got bigger. Corporate luncheons, wedding receptions, retirement parties, fundraising galas. I learned to navigate contracts, negotiate prices, and manage a schedule that often had me working 16-hour days. Ryan spent his teenage years in banquet halls and hotel kitchens, helping me load and unload equipment, watching me transform empty spaces into celebrations. He complained sometimes, the way teenagers do. His friends were at the movies or the mall, and he was stuck rolling silverware into napkins or carrying chafing dishes from the van. "I know this is not fun," I told him once, when he was 14 and particularly sullen about missing a party. "But this is what it takes. This business is going to pay for your college. It is going to give you opportunities I never had." He softened then, the way he always did when he remembered it was just the two of us against the world. "I know, Mom. I am sorry." "Do not be sorry. Just remember this when you are older. Remember that nothing worth having comes easy." He hugged me that night, and I held him tight, believing with everything in me that all of this struggle would be worth it, that my son would see my sacrifice and understand that love is not just words. Love is showing up. Love is working until your body aches so someone else can rest. Love is building a future with your bare hands and trusting that the person you are building it for will honor what it cost. I had no idea then that I was wrong. The business grew faster than I ever imagined possible. By the time Ryan turned 16, Carter Events had become one of the most requested catering companies in the Dallas area. We had a permanent staff of 12, a fleet of 3 vans, and a commercial kitchen large enough to handle events for 500 people. My phone rang constantly with requests for proposals, and I found myself turning down jobs because we were booked months in advance. Success felt strange. For so long, I had been scraping by, measuring my worth in whether or not I could pay bills on time. Now I was depositing checks that made my younger self weep with disbelief. I bought a small house in a decent neighborhood. I traded the used van for a reliable car. I opened a retirement account for the first time in my life. But even as the money came in, I lived like I was still counting pennies. Old habits die hard when you have known real poverty. I bought my clothes at outlet stores. I cooked at home instead of eating out. I kept the thermostat at 68 degrees in winter because I still remembered what it felt like to choose between heat and groceries. Every dollar I did not spend on myself went into 2 places: the business, which always needed equipment upgrades, staff training, and marketing, and a private savings account I opened the week Ryan turned 17. I called it the R Fund in my own mind. R for Ryan, R for future, R for all the dreams I held for my son. The account started with $5,000, money I transferred from my first truly profitable quarter. Then I added to it monthly, sometimes weekly, when we had a particularly good event, $1,000 here, $3,000 there. The balance grew steadily, quietly, a secret I kept even from Ryan because I wanted it to be a surprise someday. Maybe for his wedding, I thought. I could hand him a check and tell him to start his marriage without debt, to take his bride on a honeymoon anywhere in the world. Or maybe he would want to start his own business, and I could fund it entirely, give him the kind of head start I never had. The account became a source of comfort during hard weeks. When a client complained or an employee quit unexpectedly, or I felt the weight of being responsible for so many people's livelihoods, I would log into that account and watch the numbers grow. This is what it is all for, I would remind myself. This is love in its most practical form. Ryan, meanwhile, was changing in ways I tried not to see. His sophomore year of high school, he started asking why we could not live in a bigger house. His friends had pools and game rooms, he said. Why did we still live so modestly when the business was doing well? Because we are building something that lasts, I explained. We are being smart with money, so it is there when we really need it. He did not understand. How could he? He had never known hunger. He had never worn shoes with holes in them or stayed home from school because we could not afford the field trip fee. I had succeeded in giving him a childhood free from the poverty I knew, but in doing so, I had also given him no reference point for understanding sacrifice. By his senior year, he was embarrassed by my work. Not openly, not in a way he would admit, but I felt it. When his friends asked what his mom did, he would say, "She owns a catering company," in a tone that made it sound smaller than it was. He stopped inviting me to school events if he could avoid it. He made excuses for why I could not meet his girlfriend's parents. I told myself it was normal teenage behavior. Kids want to be independent. They push away from their parents. It did not mean anything. But there were moments when I caught him looking at me with something that felt like disappointment, like I was not quite enough, like the life I had built with my own 2 hands was somehow less valuable because it involved serving food instead of sitting behind a desk in a corner office. I worked harder. I do not know what else to do when someone you love seems to be drifting away. So I worked. I expanded the business. I took on bigger clients. I won awards from the local Chamber of Commerce. I was featured in a magazine article about successful women entrepreneurs. Look, I wanted to say. Look at what I built. Look at what I did for you. But Ryan was 18 by then, packing for college at Texas State University, his tuition fully paid from the business account. He hugged me goodbye in the driveway, and I held him tight, breathing in the smell of his shampoo, memorizing the feeling of my son in my arms. "I am so proud of you," I whispered. "Thanks, Mom. I will call you when I get settled." He called twice that first semester. I told myself it was fine. He was busy. He was young. He was building his own life, which was exactly what I wanted for him. And when he graduated, when he came back to Dallas and started working for Carter Events like we had always planned, things would get better. He would see the business through adult eyes and understand what it represented. He would finally understand me. The R Fund reached $215,000 the month before Ryan's college graduation. I looked at that number on my computer screen and felt something like joy. This was security. This was freedom. This was a mother's love transformed into something tangible. I could not wait to give it to him. I just needed the right moment, the perfect moment, when he was ready to truly appreciate what it meant. That moment never came, because by the time Ryan moved back to Dallas, he had already met Tessa Monroe, and the son I thought I knew was about to become someone I could barely recognize. Ryan met Tessa at a corporate networking event 6 months after he graduated. He came home that night with a light in his eyes I had not seen in years. "Mom, I met someone," he said, leaning against the kitchen counter while I cleaned up after a long day. "She's incredible, smart, beautiful, ambitious. She works in marketing for her father's investment firm." I smiled, genuinely happy to see him excited about something. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. What's her name?" "Tessa Monroe. Her family is really well connected in Dallas. Her dad, Victor, he's built this massive portfolio, multiple businesses, real estate, all of it." The way he said Victor's name, with a kind of reverence I had never heard him use for anyone, made something tighten in my chest, but I pushed it aside. My son was in love. This was supposed to be a good thing. "When do I get to meet her?" Ryan hesitated, just for a second. "Soon. I want to make sure things are serious first." 3 months later, he finally brought her to Sunday dinner. I spent the entire day preparing. I made my best dishes, the ones that had won over countless clients and earned 5-star reviews. Herb roasted chicken with garlic and rosemary, scalloped potatoes with Gruyere, fresh green beans with almonds, a chocolate torte that took 4 hours from start to finish. The table was set with my good dishes, the ones I only used for special occasions. I wore a nice blouse and slacks, applied a bit of makeup. I wanted to make a good impression. This woman might become my daughter-in-law someday, the mother of my grandchildren. When the doorbell rang at 6, I took a deep breath and opened the door. Tessa Monroe stood on my porch looking like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine. Cream-colored cashmere sweater, tailored pants, heels that probably cost more than my entire outfit. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves, her makeup flawless. She held a bottle of wine that I later learned cost $140. "Mrs. Carter," she said, extending a hand with a smile that showed very white, very straight teeth. "It's so lovely to finally meet you. Ryan has told me so much." "Please, call me Valerie," I said, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, confident. Come in. Dinner is almost ready." Ryan followed her inside, his hand on the small of her back, watching her like she was the only person in the room. I had never seen my son look at anyone that way. Over dinner, Tessa asked polite questions about the house, about Carter Events, about how long I had lived in the neighborhood. But there was something in the way she asked, a subtle tone that made even compliments feel like observations from someone studying something quaint. "This chicken is delicious," she said, taking a small bite. "Do you cook like this for your events?" "Thank you. And yes, everything we serve is made from scratch. That's always been our philosophy." "How charming." Most caterers these days use pre-prepared items to save time. It must be exhausting doing everything the old-fashioned way. Old-fashioned. The words landed soft but deliberate. "It's what sets us apart," I said evenly. "People can taste the difference." "Oh, I'm sure," she smiled. "It's just such a labor-intensive model. Ryan was telling me you still do a lot of the cooking yourself?" "I oversee all the menus and handle our high-profile events personally." "That's so hands-on." She glanced at Ryan. "Do you help with the cooking too?" Ryan shifted in his seat. "I manage more of the business side now. Operations, client relations, that kind of thing." "Which makes much more sense for someone with your education," Tessa said, touching his arm. "A business degree from Texas State should be put to good use in strategy and growth, not in a kitchen." The way she said it, "not in a kitchen," felt like a judgment of everything I had built. I kept my smile in place. The kitchen is where this business was born. It's the heart of everything we do. "Of course," Tessa said quickly. "I didn't mean any disrespect. It's just that there's so much potential for expansion. Ryan and I have been talking about it, actually. With the right investors and a more modern approach, Carter Events could scale significantly." I looked at Ryan. "You've been discussing my business with Tessa?" "Just ideas, Mom, ways we could grow." "My father knows several people in the hospitality industry," Tessa added. "He's mentioned he'd be happy to offer guidance. He's built 3 successful restaurant chains from the ground up." There it was. Victor Monroe, entering the conversation like a solution to a problem I did not know I had. The rest of dinner continued in the same vein. Tessa complimented my home while suggesting renovations. She praised my business while pointing out inefficiencies. She smiled warmly while making me feel small in my own dining room. When they left that evening, Ryan kissed my cheek at the door. "Thanks for dinner, Mom. Tessa really liked you." I watched them walk to his car, watched him open her door, watched her laugh at something he said. And I felt the first real thread of fear that I was losing my son to a world I could not compete with. 2 weeks later, I met Victor Monroe. Ryan invited me to dinner at a steakhouse downtown, the kind with dark wood paneling and a wine list thicker than a phone book. "Tessa's parents were joining us," he said, "a chance for the families to meet." Victor Monroe was exactly what I expected. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit, the kind of handshake that was meant to establish dominance. His wife, Patricia, was quieter, elegant, perfectly pleasant in the way wealthy women often are when they are being polite to people they consider beneath them. "So you're the famous Valerie," Victor said, his voice booming across the table. "Ryan tells me you run a little catering operation." "Little. Operation. Carter Events," I said. "We've been in business for 20 years. Impressive longevity for a small business. Most don't make it past 5 years. He cut into his steak with precision. "What's your annual revenue, if you don't mind me asking?" I did mind, but I answered anyway, keeping my voice steady. Victor nodded, unimpressed. "Respectable for a boutique service. Have you ever considered franchising or bringing in outside capital to expand?" "I prefer to maintain direct control over quality." "Quality is important," he agreed. "But so is growth. A business that isn't growing is dying. That's just economics." Ryan was nodding along, absorbing every word like gospel. The dinner lasted 2 hours, and by the end of it, I felt like I had been measured and found wanting. Victor talked about his empire, his connections, his vision for what Ryan could become with the right guidance and opportunities. He barely asked me anything about myself beyond the initial questions about my business. When we said goodbye in the parking lot, Victor shook my hand again. "It was good to meet you, Valerie. I can see where Ryan gets his work ethic. With a little refinement and the right mentorship, he's going to do great things." Refinement, mentorship, as if everything I had taught my son was just a rough draft waiting for someone better to edit. I drove home that night with my hands tight on the steering wheel, fighting back tears I refused to let fall. Ryan called me the next day, excited. "Victor really liked you, Mom. He thinks we should talk more about the business. He has some ideas that could really help us." Us. Like Victor was already part of the equation. "That's nice, sweetheart," I managed to say. But I knew, even then, that something fundamental had shifted. My son was being drawn into a world where I was no longer the most important voice in his life, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Sunday dinners had been our tradition for as long as I could remember. Every week, without fail, Ryan would come over, and we would cook together, eat together, talk about our lives. It was the one constant that connected us through his childhood, his teenage years, his college experience. No matter what else was happening, we had Sundays. The first time he canceled, he had a good reason. Tessa's family was having a brunch, and she really wanted him there. "I'm sorry, Mom. Can we do next week instead?" "Of course, sweetheart. Family is important." The second cancellation came 3 weeks later, a networking event that Victor had invited him to. "It's a really big opportunity, Mom. Some major investors will be there." "I understand. We can reschedule." By the third month, Sunday dinners happened maybe twice, then once, then not at all. Ryan started showing up at the Carter events office later and leaving earlier. When he was there, he spent most of his time in his own office with the door closed, taking calls that he said were important but never explained. The easy collaboration we once had, the partnership I thought we were building, started to feel strained. One afternoon in late fall, I knocked on his office door to discuss an upcoming wedding we were catering. He was on the phone, but he waved me in. "No. I completely agree," he was saying, his tone animated in a way I rarely heard anymore. "The old model doesn't work in today's market. You need scalability, efficiency, brand recognition." A pause. "Exactly. That's what I've been trying to explain." He glanced at me, held up a finger. 1 minute. I waited, holding the folder with the wedding details. "All right, Victor. I'll put together some numbers and send them over. Thanks for the insight." He hung up and finally looked at me. "What's up, Mom?" "The Morrison wedding is in 2 weeks. I wanted to go over the final menu selections with you." Ryan leaned back in his chair, looking suddenly tired. "Can you just handle it? I trust your judgment on that stuff." That stuff. The menus I had spent hours perfecting, the client relationships I had carefully nurtured. "Ryan, you're the operations manager. This is part of your job." "I know, but I'm working on something bigger right now, strategic planning. We need to start thinking about where this company is going, not just what we're serving at individual events. Individual events are how we make money. They're how we built this business." "Built? Past tense?" he said, and there was an edge to his voice I had never heard before. "We need to focus on growth, expansion. Victor thinks we should look into opening a second location, maybe even a third. We could franchise the model, bring in real investors." "Victor thinks," I repeated slowly. "And what do you think?" "I think he's right. I think we're playing small when we could be doing so much more. Playing small. My life's work, reduced to a phrase that made it sound like a hobby. Ryan, this business works because we maintain quality control. Because every event gets personal attention. If we expand too fast, we lose what makes us special. Or we evolve," he countered. "Mom, I love what you've built. I do. But there's a difference between a lifestyle business and a real company. If we want to compete at a higher level, we need to modernize." Every word felt like it came from someone else's mouth. Victor's words, Tessa's words, not my son's. I left his office without discussing the wedding. The changes came slowly at first, then faster. Ryan started pushing for decisions I did not agree with. He wanted to switch to cheaper ingredients to increase profit margins. He wanted to hire less experienced staff at lower wages. He wanted to cut corners I had never cut in 20 years of business. "It's basic economics, Mom," he said during one particularly heated discussion. "You're leaving money on the table by being so precious about every detail." Precious. Like caring about quality was a character flaw. We argued more in those months than we had in his entire life, and each argument ended the same way, with Ryan frustrated and me feeling like I was fighting to protect something he no longer valued. Then came the day he asked for ownership. We were alone in the office after everyone else had gone home. He sat across from my desk, his expression serious. "Mom, I think it's time we talked about succession planning." "Succession planning?" "Ryan, I'm 57 years old. I'm not planning to retire anytime soon." I'm not asking you to retire. I'm asking you to give me a stake in the company. Real ownership, not just a salary. I've been working here for almost 2 years now. I should have equity. My hands went cold. This company is my retirement, Ryan. It's my security. And it could be our future together. But I need to have actual power to make decisions. Right now, everything has to go through you, and it's slowing us down. Slowing us down from what? From reaching our potential. He leaned forward. Victor said he'd be willing to invest if I had a controlling interest. Real capital, Mom. Enough to expand properly. There it was. Victor's hand in my business, using my son as the entry point. No, I said quietly. What? No. I'm not giving you controlling interest in Carter Events, and I'm not taking money from Victor Monroe. Ryan's face hardened. Why? Because you don't trust me? Because this is my life's work, and I'm not ready to hand it over to someone who wants to fundamentally change everything I've built. Someone? I'm your son. Then act like it, I said, my voice breaking slightly. Act like you understand what this business means, what it cost me to build it. He stood up, his jaw tight. You want me to be grateful forever? Is that it? You want me to spend my whole life thanking you for sacrifices I never asked you to make? The words hit like a slap. I never asked for gratitude, I whispered. I just wanted you to care. Ryan left without another word. That night, I sat in my home office and did something I had never thought I would do. I called my attorney, David Chen, a man who had handled my business contracts for 15 years. David, I need to make some changes to the company structure. Protective measures. What kind of protective measures? The kind that make sure no one can take this business from me. Not through coercion, not through family pressure, not through anything. There was a pause. Valerie, what's going on? I'm protecting what I built. Can you help me or not? Of course I can help you. Over the next 2 weeks, David restructured Carter Events' legal framework. We created safeguards that ensured I maintained complete control. We removed Ryan's access to certain accounts. We clarified that employment did not equal ownership and that any future transfer of the company would be entirely at my discretion. Ryan did not know. I did not tell him. But I slept better knowing that my life's work was secure, even if it meant acknowledging that I could no longer trust my own son. The distance between us grew wider. He stopped coming by my house entirely. Our conversations at work became purely professional, brief exchanges about schedules and clients. The warmth that had once existed between us, the easy affection of mother and son, disappeared like morning fog burning off under harsh sun. I told myself it was temporary, that he was going through a phase, that eventually he would remember who he was and come back to me. But deep down, I knew better. I was losing my son to a version of success that had nothing to do with the values I had tried to teach him, and the worst part was he did not even seem to notice I was slipping away. Or maybe he noticed and simply did not care. I found out about Ryan's engagement on Instagram. Not from a phone call, not from him showing up at my door with Tessa, eyes bright with excitement, asking for my blessing. I learned that my only son was getting married because a notification popped up on my phone while I was reviewing invoices at my kitchen table. Ryan Carter is engaged to Tessa Monroe. The photo showed them on a beach at sunset. Tessa's hand extended toward the camera, a diamond catching the golden light. Her smile was radiant. Ryan looked happier than I had seen him in months. The caption read, "She said yes, excited to start forever with my best friend." 247 people had already liked it. I was not one of them. I sat there staring at my phone screen, waiting for it to ring. Surely he would call. Surely, even with everything that had happened between us, he would pick up the phone and tell his mother directly that he was getting married. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, at nearly 10 at night, my phone buzzed. A text message. "Hey, Mom. Just wanted to let you know that I proposed to Tessa tonight. I know you probably saw it online already. We're really happy. I'll call you soon to talk about details." I read it 3 times, looking for warmth that was not there, looking for anything that felt like he remembered I was his mother and not just another person on his contact list. I typed and deleted 4 different responses before settling on, "Congratulations, sweetheart. I'm happy for you both." He sent back a thumbs up emoji. That was it. That was how I learned I was going to have a daughter-in-law. The wedding planning happened around me, not with me. Tessa's mother, Patricia, took control immediately. She knew a planner, she said, someone who had done weddings for several prominent Dallas families. The venue was already being discussed before I even knew what season they were considering. When I finally did get a phone call from Ryan, 3 weeks after the engagement, it was brief and felt obligatory. "So we're thinking next June," he said. "Tessa wants a summer wedding. Her mom has some connections at this estate venue outside the city." "That sounds lovely. How can I help?" A pause. "We've kind of got it handled, Mom. Patricia is really experienced with this stuff, and the planner she hired is top tier, but we'll definitely keep you in the loop." The loop? Like I was a distant relative, not the groom's mother. "Ryan, I'd like to be involved. This is your wedding. I know. And you will be. We just want to make sure everything is done right, you know? This is a big deal for Tessa's family. A lot of important people will be there." Important people. The phrase hung in the air between us. And I'm not important? That's not what I meant. You're twisting my words. Then what did you mean? He sighed, that particular sound of exasperation that children reserve for parents they find difficult. "Look, I don't want to fight about this. You'll be involved. We'll make sure you have input. But Tessa and her mom have a vision, and I want to support that." Their vision did not include much space for me. I was invited to dress shopping, once. Patricia, Tessa, her 2 sisters, her grandmother, 3 bridesmaids, and me. We went to a bridal salon that served champagne and had private fitting rooms larger than my first apartment. I sat on a cream-colored sofa next to Tessa's grandmother, both of us watching as Tessa modeled dress after dress. Each one cost more than I spent on my own wedding, my car, and 3 months of mortgage combined. "What do you think, Valerie?" Tessa asked, stepping out in a ball gown with layers of silk and lace. "You look beautiful," I said honestly. "But," Tessa tilted her head, smiling. "I can tell there's a but." "No, but you look stunning." "She looks like a princess," Patricia declared. "This is the one." And that was that. My opinion had been requested as a formality, nothing more. Afterward, they all went to lunch at a restaurant where you needed a reservation made weeks in advance. I was invited, of course, but the invitation felt like politeness, not genuine desire for my company. "I actually have to get back to work," I said. "But thank you." "Oh, that's too bad," Patricia said, already turning to tell the hostess they would be a party of 8 instead of 9. I drove back to my office and cried in the parking lot for 20 minutes before going inside. The engagement party was held at the Monroe family home, a sprawling estate with manicured gardens and a guest list that read like a who's who of Dallas society. I received an invitation in the mail, formal and embossed, the same as everyone else. I wore my best dress, brought an expensive bottle of wine, and showed up with a smile that felt like it might crack my face. Ryan greeted me at the door with a quick hug. "Thanks for coming, Mom." "Of course. I wouldn't miss it. Tessa's mom did an amazing job with everything, right? This is incredible." I looked around at the floral arrangements that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, the catered food from a restaurant I had never heard of, the string quartet playing in the corner. "It's beautiful," I said. And it was. But it was also a world I did not belong to, filled with people who spoke a language of country clubs and yacht weeks and winter homes. I made small talk when spoken to, smiled politely, and tried not to feel like the help. At one point, I found myself standing alone near the garden entrance, watching Ryan and Tessa move through the crowd. They were golden together, young and beautiful and beloved. Everyone wanted to talk to them, to be near them, to bask in their happiness. "You must be so proud," a woman said beside me. I did not know her name, but she had the look of someone who had never worried about money a day in her life. "I am," I said. "Victor and Patricia have been wonderful to Ryan, haven't they? Taking him under their wing like that. Taking him. Like he was an orphan in need of rescue. They've been very generous," I managed. "Well, he's lucky to be marrying into such an established family. The Monroe name opens a lot of doors." She drifted away before I could respond, leaving me standing there with the bitter taste of being erased from my own son's story. I left the party early, no one noticed. The months between the engagement and the wedding were marked by occasional text messages and even less frequent phone calls. Ryan was busy, he said. So much to plan. So many decisions to make. Work was intense. Tessa needed him. I stopped reaching out as much. What was the point? Every conversation felt like an intrusion into a life I was no longer part of. The R fund, meanwhile, continued to grow. I added to it faithfully, the same way I always had. It had become automatic, a habit born of love and hope that maybe, somehow, this money would be the thing that finally showed Ryan I had always been thinking of him, that I had sacrificed and saved and planned for his happiness. The balance reached $283,000 by February. I looked at that number on my computer screen one night, sitting alone in my home office, and wondered if my son even deserved it anymore. Wondered if giving him this money would mean anything to someone who now measured worth in country club memberships and investment portfolios. But he was still my son, and I still loved him, even when loving him hurt more than I thought possible. So I kept saving, kept hoping, kept believing that maybe on his wedding day, when I handed him that check, something would shift. He would see what I had done. He would remember that before there was Tessa, before there was Victor, there was a mother who worked herself to exhaustion to give him a life without struggle. Maybe he would come back to me. It was a foolish hope, looking back now, but hope is the last thing a mother lets go of, even when all the evidence tells her she should. I attended the rehearsal dinner in a simple black dress, sat at a table near the back, and watched my son laugh at Victor's jokes. I went home early, again unnoticed, and allowed myself one night of complete grief. Then I woke up, got dressed, and prepared to attend my son's wedding with my head held high and my broken heart carefully hidden. I had no idea that within a month, everything would change. That the humiliation I felt at that engagement party was nothing compared to what was coming, and that the R fund I had so carefully built would become the weapon I never knew I needed. March 16th arrived with perfect weather, which somehow made everything worse. The invitation had specified black tie, which meant I spent money I would normally save on a new dress. Navy blue, elegant, appropriate for a mother attending her son's birthday celebration. I had my hair done at a salon, applied makeup with more care than usual, and tried to convince myself that tonight would be different, that maybe in a room full of celebration, Ryan would remember to include me. I should have known better. The Riverside Grand Hotel was the kind of place that made you feel small the moment you walked through the doors. Marble floors, crystal everywhere, staff in uniforms that probably cost more than my dress. A doorman directed me to the ballroom on the 3rd floor, and I took the elevator up with my stomach in knots. The doors opened to reveal a scene from a magazine spread. The room glowed with soft golden light from fixtures I could not name. Round tables draped in cream linens filled the space, each centerpiece an arrangement of white roses and greenery that must have cost a fortune. A live band played jazz in the corner, and servers moved through the crowd with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres that looked like tiny works of art. 200 people, the invitation had said. Looking around, I believed it. I took a glass of champagne from a passing server more to have something to hold than because I wanted it. Then I searched the crowd for my son. Ryan stood near the bar, surrounded by men in expensive suits. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, confident in a way that both filled me with pride and made me sad. This version of my son, polished and sophisticated, felt like someone I was meeting for the first time. Our eyes met across the room. I smiled, started to move toward him. He looked away. Not obviously, not rudely. Just a subtle shift of attention back to his conversation, as if he had not seen me at all. I stopped walking. Tessa appeared at his side moments later, wearing emerald green that made her look like old money and new beauty combined. She whispered something in Ryan's ear. He laughed, pulled her close, kissed her temple. They looked like they belonged in that room, with those people, in that life. I looked like I had wandered in from somewhere else entirely. I found a table near the back and sat down, watching the celebration happen around me. People greeted each other with familiarity, exchanged inside jokes, discussed vacation homes and business deals. A woman at the next table was complaining about her villa in Tuscany needing renovations. A man behind me was debating which luxury car to buy his daughter for graduation. I sipped my champagne and tried to remember the last time Ryan had called me just to talk. Dinner was announced. People found their seats. I noticed with a sinking feeling that there were place cards at each setting. I was at table 17, near the back corner, seated with people I had never met. Colleagues of Victor's, I learned from awkward small talk. Nice enough people, but strangers who had no idea who I was or why I was there. Ryan sat at the head table with Tessa, Victor, Patricia, and what appeared to be their closest friends. He never looked my way. Not once during the salad course, or the main course, or the conversation that flowed around tables closer to the front. I picked at my food, tasted nothing, and felt invisible. Then came the cake. It rolled out on a cart to actual applause. 4 tiers of dark chocolate, decorated with gold leaf that caught the light, topped with sparklers that crackled and spit like tiny fireworks. It was excessive and beautiful, and exactly the kind of thing that would photograph well for Instagram. The band stopped playing. Lights dimmed slightly. Ryan stood, and someone handed him a microphone. "Thank you all so much for being here tonight," he began, his voice amplified through speakers. The room quieted immediately, 200 faces turning toward him with warm attention. "This year has been incredible, and I'm so grateful to share this celebration with the people who matter most." He gestured toward Tessa, who beamed at him. "My amazing fiancé, who makes every single day better just by existing. I'm the luckiest man in the world." Applause, whistles, someone shouted, "Here, here." "And of course," Ryan continued, "I have to thank Victor and Patricia Monroe, who have completely changed my life. They've welcomed me into their family, shown me what real success looks like, and taught me more about business in 2 years than I learned in 4 years of college." More applause. Victor raised his glass from his seat, looking pleased. I waited. My hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white under the tablecloth. Surely now. Surely he would mention me. Even just a sentence. Even just acknowledgement that his mother was in the room. "A lot of people have been asking about this party," Ryan said, and there was a shift in his tone. Something lighter, more casual. "How we pulled it off, what it cost, who handled everything." My chest tightened. "I just want to clear something up." He paused, smiled at the crowd like he was about to share something amusing. "Victor covered everything tonight. The venue, the food, the band, the decorations, all of it." The room was silent, listening. "My mom didn't pay for any of it." He laughed, light and easy. "She didn't even pay for the cake." Laughter erupted around the room, good-natured, casual, the kind of laughter that comes when someone makes a joke that lands just right. But it was not a joke. I felt 200 pairs of eyes flicker toward me. Some people looked amused. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked away quickly, embarrassed on my behalf. My face burned. My throat closed. My vision blurred slightly at the edges. Ryan had already moved on, raising his glass. "So here's to Victor, for making tonight possible, and to all of you for being here. Let's eat some cake." Cheers. Applause. The band started playing again, and I sat there, paralyzed, while the room celebrated around me. He had humiliated me, in front of everyone, made me sound small and irrelevant and unnecessary, made it clear that I had contributed nothing to this moment, this celebration, this life he was building. The worst part was that he did not seem to realize he had done anything wrong. He was laughing, cutting the cake with Tessa, posing for photos. This was just a throwaway comment to him. A casual clarification that meant nothing. To me, it was everything. I set down my napkin with hands that trembled slightly. I picked up my small purse. I stood. No one noticed. I walked out of that ballroom with my back straight and my head up, moving through the crowd like a ghost, past the tables of strangers, past the expensive centerpieces, past the life my son had chosen that had no room for me in it. The hallway was blessedly empty. I made it to the elevator, pressed the button, waited while my heart hammered in my chest. The doors opened. I stepped inside. And the moment they closed, cutting me off from the party and the people and the son who had just broken my heart in front of 200 witnesses, I let myself feel it. The lobby was quiet. I walked through it on autopilot, past the doorman who wished me a good evening, into the parking lot where my car sat under streetlights. I got in, closed the door, locked it, and then I fell apart. I cried the way you cry when something fundamental breaks inside you. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the boy who used to hold my hand crossing the street, for the teenager who would help me load catering vans without being asked, for the young man I thought I was raising to be kind and loyal and good. I cried for the mother I had been, who worked herself to exhaustion believing it would matter, who saved every dollar she could spare, who built a business with bleeding hands and an aching back because she thought she was building a legacy for her son. I cried until I had nothing left. Then I sat in the silence of my car, staring at nothing, feeling empty and hollow and done. That is when the clarity came. Not all at once, not like lightning, but slowly, like dawn breaking after the longest night. I did not lose my son tonight. I had already lost him, months ago, maybe years ago. The moment he decided that Victor's approval mattered more than my sacrifice. The moment he looked at everything I built and saw something to improve rather than something to honor. I had been holding on to a version of Ryan that no longer existed. Maybe that version never existed at all. Maybe I had been so busy being the mother I thought he needed that I never saw who he actually was. But I saw it now, and seeing it meant I could finally let go. I started the car, drove home through empty streets, walked into my house and went straight to my office. The R fund sat there in my computer, waiting. $283,000. Years of sacrifice transformed into numbers on a screen. I looked at that account for a long time. Then I opened a new document and started making a list, not of what I had lost, but of what I was going to take back. By the time the sun rose, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And for the first time in months, I felt something other than grief. I felt powerful. I did not sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my desk with a cup of coffee that went cold while I stared at numbers that represented 20 years of choices. The R fund account, the business structure documents, the will I had written 3 years ago that left everything to Ryan. Everything I had built for him. That was the truth I had to face in the quiet hours before dawn. Every long shift, every missed social event, every time I chose work over rest, saving over spending, sacrifice over comfort, it had all been for Ryan, so he would never struggle the way I did. So he would inherit security and opportunity and a foundation I never had. I had poured my entire life into making sure my son would be okay. And he had just told 200 people that I had not even bought him a cake. At 5:30 in the morning, I pulled up the R fund account one more time. $283,412. Years of quiet deposits. Money set aside from profitable events, from bonuses I gave myself but never spent, from the raises I never took so the business could grow stronger. I had imagined giving this to Ryan on his wedding day, pictured his face when he realized what I had done, imagined him finally understanding the depth of a mother's love. That fantasy died somewhere between his cruel joke and this moment. I picked up my phone and called David Ward. It was early, but David was the kind of attorney who answered his phone at any hour for clients he trusted. "Valerie?" His voice was rough with sleep. "What's wrong?" "I need to see you today. First thing, before the office opens." "What happened?" "I'm rewriting my future. Can you meet me at 7?" There was a pause. Then, "I'll be there." David's office was in a modest building downtown, the kind of place that prioritized substance over appearance. I arrived at 6:50 and waited in my car until I saw his lights turn on. Then I walked in carrying a folder with every document I thought we might need. He looked at me across his desk, concern clear in his eyes. "Talk to me." So I did. I told him about the party, about Ryan's comment, about the slow erosion of our relationship over the past 2 years, about realizing that I had been holding on to someone who no longer existed. "I want to make changes," I said when I finished. "Big ones." "What kind of changes?" "The R fund. I want Ryan removed as beneficiary, immediately." David nodded slowly. "That account is in your name. You can redirect it however you want. Do you know where you want the money to go instead?" I had thought about this all night. I want to set up a scholarship fund for single mothers going to culinary school, women who are trying to build something from nothing the way I did. David wrote notes. "That's doable." "What else?" "The business. Ryan has access to certain accounts, operational authority that I gave him when I thought we were building this together. I want all of that removed." "Removed how?" Do you want to fire him? No. I surprised myself with the answer, not yet. But I want his access limited to exactly what he needs to do his job and nothing more. No financial authority, no decision-making power. He's an employee, David. That's all he should have ever been. Understood. What about ownership transfer? Last we spoke, you were considering making him part owner eventually. That's never happening now. I want the business structure locked down so that even if something happens to me, Ryan cannot inherit controlling interest. Who would you want it to go to? I thought about Dana, my niece who had been working at Carter Events for 6 years. Dana, who showed up early and stayed late, who cared about quality the way I did, who understood that this business was built on relationships and reputation, not just profit margins. I need to think about that part, I said. But I know it won't be Ryan. David looked at me for a long moment. Valerie, I have to ask, are you sure? These are permanent changes. Once we remove him as beneficiary, once we restructure his role, there's no easy way back. I'm sure. Even if he apologizes, even if things get better, they won't get better. And even if they did, he needs to learn that actions have consequences. That you cannot treat people, especially your own mother, like they're disposable, and expect everything to stay the same. David nodded. All right then, let's get started. We spent the next 3 hours going through paperwork. Beneficiary designation forms for the R Fund, corporate structure documents for Carter Events, updated access permissions for bank accounts and vendor relationships. Every signature I made felt like taking back a piece of myself I had given away too freely. By 10 in the morning, it was done. The R Fund would be transferred to a new scholarship account within 48 hours. Ryan's name was removed from every document where it did not absolutely need to be. His access to company finances was now limited to viewing only, no transfers, no authorizations, no power. How long before he notices? I asked David. Depends on when he tries to access something he no longer can. Could be today, could be next week. He'll be angry, probably. Are you ready for that? I thought about the party. About sitting in that ballroom feeling small and unwanted. About crying in my car while my son celebrated without noticing I had left. I'm ready, I said. I went to the office afterward, walking in like it was any normal day. My staff greeted me with their usual warmth. Dana was already in the kitchen, prepping for an event that weekend. Morning, Aunt Val, she called out. Coffee's fresh. Thanks, sweetheart. I poured myself a cup and watched her work. She moved through the space with confidence and care, treating ingredients with respect, double-checking every detail. She had her mother's kindness and her own quiet strength. I had never given her enough credit for what she brought to this business. That was about to change. Ryan came in around 11, later than he used to, carrying a coffee from the expensive place 3 blocks away instead of drinking what we made here. He nodded at me on his way to his office, barely a greeting. I nodded back and said nothing. Let him have his normal day. Let him think everything was fine. Tomorrow, or the next day, or whenever he tried to access an account he thought was his to control, he would learn differently. I worked through lunch, reviewing contracts and planning menus. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from David. Our fund transfer initiated. Scholarship account will be active by end of week. Corporate changes filed with state. Everything is locked in. I read the message twice, then put my phone away. It was done. 20 years of sacrifice, redirected in a single morning. A future I had carefully constructed, dismantled with a few signatures and phone calls. I should have felt sad, or guilty, or conflicted. Instead, I felt relief. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I had made a decision based on what I deserved instead of what someone else needed from me. I had drawn a line and said no more. I had taken back control of my own life. That evening, I went home and cooked myself a real dinner. Not something quick, not leftovers from a catering event. I made pasta from scratch. A simple marinara sauce with fresh basil from my garden. A salad with good olive oil. I set the table properly, lit a candle, poured a glass of wine, and I ate alone in my kitchen, tasting every bite, feeling more at peace than I had in months. My phone sat silent on the counter. Ryan did not call. He had not called in weeks unless he needed something. But that was okay now, because I had finally stopped waiting for him to remember I existed. I had remembered myself instead. And tomorrow, when he discovered what I had done, when the phone started ringing and the questions started coming, I would be ready, not with apologies, not with explanations that justified my choices, just with the simple truth. I loved my son, but I loved myself more, and that was not something I needed his permission to do. Dana came into my office 3 days after I met with David, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the concerned expression of someone who had been working up courage. "Aunt Val, do you have a minute?" I looked up from the menu planning I had been reviewing. "Of course. Sit." She settled into the chair across from my desk, setting 1 coffee in front of me. "I wanted to talk to you about something, and I'm not really sure how to say it." "Just say it, sweetheart. We've never had trouble being honest with each other." Dana took a breath. "Is everything okay? With you and Ryan, I mean. The energy in the office has been really weird lately, and I can tell something's going on." I should not have been surprised that she noticed. Dana had been around long enough to know when things were off, and she was perceptive in ways that came from actually paying attention to people. "Things are complicated right now," I said carefully. "Is it because of Tessa or her family?" "It's because Ryan has forgotten where he came from, and I've realized I can't keep pretending that's going to change." Dana nodded slowly. "I've noticed him acting different, more dismissive, especially toward you. It makes me angry, honestly. You built this whole company for him." "I thought I did," I said, "but maybe I actually built it for myself and just didn't know it yet." She smiled a little at that. "For what it's worth, I think you're an incredible businesswoman. What you've created here, it's not just a catering company, it's a reputation, a standard. People trust Carter Events because they trust you." Her words settled something in my chest that I had not realized was unsettled. "Dana, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why did you come work here? 6 years ago, when you were fresh out of college. You could have gone anywhere, done anything. Why this?" She did not hesitate. "Because you inspired me. Growing up, watching you build this business from nothing, watching you fight for every client and every opportunity, I wanted to be part of something like that. Something real, something that mattered. And now? Do you still feel that way? More than ever. I love what we do here, Aunt Val. I love that we care about the food, about the presentation, about making people's events special. That's rare. Most companies this size have lost that personal touch." I looked at my niece, really looked at her. 28 years old, smart and dedicated, with her whole future ahead of her. She had her mother's eyes and her father's practical sense, but she had something else too. A genuine passion for this work that Ryan had never really had. Ryan saw the business as a vehicle. Dana saw it as a calling. "What if I told you I wanted to make some changes?" I said. "Big changes to how this company is structured." "What kind of changes?" "The kind where you would have real authority, real ownership. Not someday, not eventually. Soon." Dana's eyes widened. "Aunt Val, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that I need to know this business will be taken care of by someone who values it the way I do. Someone who understands that success isn't just about profit margins and expansion. It's about integrity and relationships and doing work you can be proud of." "But Ryan is your son. Everyone assumes he'll take over eventually." "Everyone assumed wrong," I said quietly. "Ryan has made it very clear that he doesn't value what I've built. He wants to change it into something I don't recognize, and I can't let that happen." Dana was silent for a moment, processing. "What are you asking me?" "I'm asking if you would be interested in becoming a partner. Real equity, Dana. A path to majority ownership when I'm ready to step back. This company would be yours to lead." I watched emotions cross her face. Shock, disbelief, then something that looked like hope. "Are you serious?" "Completely. I've already spoken with my attorney about restructuring. I wanted to talk to you before making it official, but yes, I'm serious." Dana's eyes filled with tears. "Aunt Val, I don't know what to say. This is everything I've ever wanted. But I never thought it was possible. I thought Ryan was always going to be the heir apparent. Ryan made his choice. Now I'm making mine." She wiped at her eyes, laughing a little through the tears. "My mom is going to lose her mind. In a good way. She's always worried I was wasting my potential here. You've never wasted a single day. You've earned this, Dana. Not because you're family, because you're excellent at what you do. When would this happen? The paperwork can be ready within 2 weeks. We'll start with 25% ownership, with an agreement that it increases over the next 5 years until you hold controlling interest. You'll be named Chief Operating Officer immediately, which comes with full decision-making authority. Dana stood up, walked around the desk, and hugged me tight. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me, for trusting me. I hugged her back, feeling lighter than I had in months. Thank you for being someone I can trust. The paperwork took exactly 12 days. David worked with a corporate attorney to draft everything properly: partnership agreements, stock certificates, updated operating documents that named Dana as my successor, and removed any language that suggested Ryan had a future ownership stake. I signed everything in David's office on a Tuesday morning. Dana signed that afternoon, her hand shaking slightly as she put pen to paper. "This is real now," she said, looking at the documents. "This is real," I confirmed. "When are you going to tell Ryan?" "I'm not. He'll figure it out on his own." That same afternoon, I sent an email to the entire Carter Events staff, short, professional, and direct. Effective immediately. Dana Williams has been promoted to Chief Operating Officer and minority partner of Carter Events. She will have full operational authority and will be my primary partner in all business decisions moving forward. Please join me in congratulating her on this well-deserved advancement. I copied Ryan on the email. Responses came back within minutes. Congratulations from the staff. Excitement. Well wishes. Everyone who worked with Dana regularly knew she deserved this. Ryan's response came 20 minutes later. A single line. "Can we talk? In person?" I wrote back, "I'm in my office." He appeared in my doorway 5 minutes later, holding his phone, his face tight with confusion and something that looked like panic. "What is this?" He held up his phone, showing my email. Exactly what it says. Dana is now COO and a partner in the company. "Since when do you make decisions like this without talking to me?" "Since it's my company and I can run it however I choose." Ryan stepped into the office and closed the door behind him. "Mom, what is going on? First I get locked out of half the accounts, now Dana is suddenly a partner? What are you doing?" "I'm protecting what I built and giving authority to someone who's earned it." "And I haven't earned it?" "I've been working here for 2 years. You've been working here while actively trying to change everything about how we operate, while bringing Victor's ideas into my business without my permission, while making it very clear that you think what I've built needs to be fixed. That's not fair. What's not fair is you treating me like I'm an obstacle instead of the person who gave you this opportunity in the first place." Ryan's jaw clenched. "Is this about the party? About what I said?" "It's about everything. The party was just the moment I finally saw clearly. I didn't mean anything by that comment, Mom. It was a joke. It wasn't funny. And the fact that you still don't understand why it hurt tells me everything I need to know about where we are." He ran a hand through his hair, agitated. "So what? You're punishing me by giving my future to Dana?" "This was never your future, Ryan. You just assumed it was." "I assumed it was. We were both wrong. Does Victor know about this?" The question made me actually laugh. Why would Victor know about my business decisions? He has nothing to do with Carter Events. He has connections, resources. He could help us grow exponentially. I don't want his help. I don't want his money. And I don't want his influence anywhere near what I've built. Ryan stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." He left without another word, the door closing hard enough to make the frame shudder. I sat in the silence of my office, my heart pounding but my resolve steady. Dana appeared in the doorway a few minutes later. I heard raised voices. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "He's angry. He'll get over it. Or he won't. Either way, this company is in good hands now." Dana smiled, tentative but genuine. "I won't let you down. I know you won't. That's why I chose you." That evening, I went home and opened a bottle of wine I had been saving for a special occasion. I sat on my back porch as the sun set, feeling the weight of 2 decades slowly lifting from my shoulders. My phone buzzed with a text from Dana. "Thank you again. I'm going to make you proud." I wrote back. "You already do." Ryan did not call, did not text. The silence from him felt like confirmation that I had made the right choice. I had spent so long waiting for my son to see me, to value me, to appreciate what I had sacrificed. Now I was done waiting. I had given my legacy to someone who would honor it, and that felt like freedom. The calls started 3 days after I promoted Dana. I was in the middle of a tasting session with a bride and her mother when my phone began vibrating in my pocket. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. I ignored it, focusing on the client in front of me, explaining the difference between the herb-roasted chicken and the lemon-garlic version. When the tasting ended and I walked back to my office, I pulled out my phone. 14 missed calls, all from Ryan. No voicemails. Just the relentless repetition of his name on my call log. I was about to call him back when my phone rang again. Ryan's name lit up the screen. I answered. "What's wrong? What did you do?" His voice was tight, strained. "What did you do to the R fund?" My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. I redirected it. "You redirected $283,000? Where?" "That's not your concern." "Not my concern?" "Mom, that money was for me. We both know it was for me." "It was my money, Ryan, in an account with my name on it. I can do whatever I want with it." "You were saving it for my wedding. You told me you had something special planned." "I did have something special planned. Then, things changed." "Changed how? Because I made one stupid joke at a party? You're going to take away my entire future over that." I sat down at my desk. Exhaustion suddenly washing over me. "Ryan, that fund was never guaranteed to you. And it's not about one joke. It's about 2 years of watching you become someone I don't recognize. Someone who doesn't value what I've built or respect the sacrifices I've made. So you're punishing me. I'm redirecting resources to someone who will appreciate them. I've created a scholarship fund for single mothers pursuing culinary careers. Women who are where I was 25 years ago, trying to build something from nothing." Silence on the other end. Then, "You gave my inheritance to strangers?" "I gave my money to a cause that matters to me. Tessa is going to lose her mind. Do you understand that? We were counting on that money." "Why were you counting on money that was never promised to you?" "Because you're my mother. Because that's what mothers do. They help their children." The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. "I've helped you your entire life. I put you through college debt-free. I gave you a job when you graduated. I paid for your car, your apartment deposit, countless other things. At some point, Ryan, you have to stand on your own." "With what? You just took away everything." "I took away money you never had. There's a difference." He was breathing hard now, angry and desperate. "Victor said this would happen. He said you'd try to control me by controlling the money." "Victor doesn't know anything about me or our relationship. He knows more than you think. He warned me that you'd never let go, that you'd use the business and whatever else you had to keep me dependent." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's rich, coming from a man who's been manipulating you for 2 years. Who's convinced you that everything I built is somehow inadequate? Who wants access to my business through you? That's not what's happening." "Then what is happening, Ryan? Explain it to me. Because from where I'm sitting, you've spent 2 years pulling away from me, disrespecting me, and prioritizing people who have known you for minutes over the woman who raised you alone. I'm trying to build a life, Mom, a future, with Tessa, and you're making that impossible." "No. I'm making it so you have to build that future with your own resources instead of mine. That's called being an adult." The line went quiet for a long moment. Then Ryan said, his voice cold, "Tessa was right about you." "What did she say?" "That you'd never accept her. That you'd always see her as competition. That you'd do whatever it took to keep me under your thumb." "If that's what you believe, then we have nothing more to talk about." I hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But I didn't cry. I had done all my crying. Now there was just the hard, clear truth of the choice I had made. The phone rang again immediately. "Ryan." I declined the call. It rang again. 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 I turned off the ringer and set the phone face down on my desk. When I finally checked it 2 hours later, there were 37 missed calls. The voicemail started after call number 20. The first one was angry. "You can't just ignore me, Mom. We need to talk about this. Call me back." The fifth one was confused. I don't understand why you're doing this. What did I do that was so terrible? Just call me back and we can talk. The 10th one was panicked. Tessa's parents found out about the fund being gone. Victor is furious. He's saying things about backing out of business opportunities. Mom, please, we need that money. The 15th one was desperate. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry about the party. I'm sorry about whatever I did to make you this angry. Just please, can we fix this? I listened to them all, sitting alone in my office after everyone else had gone home. Ryan's voice cycling through every emotion: anger, confusion, panic, desperation, and finally, something that sounded almost like genuine regret. But not once did he say he understood why I had done it. Not once did he acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, he had taken me for granted. It was all about what he had lost, not about what he had done to lose it. By the end of the week, the missed calls totaled 76. 76 times my son had tried to reach me, and 76 times I had chosen not to answer. Dana noticed. He's been calling the office too, trying to reach you through the main line. What did you tell him? That you're unavailable and you'll return his call when you're ready. Thank you. Aunt Val, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think you'll ever talk to him again? I considered the question. Eventually. When he's ready to have a real conversation, instead of just demanding I fix what he thinks I broke. What if he never gets there? Then I'll learn to live with that. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could. He was still my son. Somewhere under the entitlement and the influence of people who didn't have his best interests at heart, there was still the boy I had raised, the child I had loved more than my own life. But loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. And that's what Ryan had been doing. Slowly, for 2 years. Destroying the woman I